educational. We ask that there are no sales pitches. We want everybody to come here and gain some education and not feel like they're being sold a product. So trying to keep the conversation solely educational and to gain as much knowledge as you can. DUG or Dynamics User Group offers multiple different platforms and programs. So we have open discussion forums, we have webinars, meetups, conferences, anything that you could probably possibly imagine we offer. And if we don't, please suggest it and we probably will offer it. We also have a YouTube channel where a lot of local meetups like this one are posted. Looks like somebody might not be muted. If you wouldn't mind just muting yourself so we don't get an echo in the background. So we offer a YouTube channel where lots of local meetups like this are posted, and it's a really great way to learn about any and all topics. So I would definitely suggest checking out our YouTube channel. We also have our 2025 regional DUG meetups coming up. These are a little bit larger in scope than our local meetups. They're usually a full day event and we provide breakfast, lunch. There's lots of networking opportunities and a full day of content with multiple different speakers and products. So a really great way to get involved in the community and gain some knowledge. We are going to Northeast in Philadelphia in March, Copenhagen in April, Canada in June. Personally very excited about this one because I get to go on the trip, but we're going to West Africa in July and then over to Kenya and East Africa in July as well. Going to Colorado in August, Ohio in August, and Texas in September. So if these are in any of your local areas, I would highly suggest joining them. We also have our 2025 DynamicsCon coming up in Chicago from May 13th to the 16th. This is, if I can get it to pull back up, this is our largest conference of the year. So it is a multi-day event with tons of speakers, tons of content, tons of educational sessions. And currently we actually have the best deal that we are probably ever going to offer. We have a free ticket for all of our Meetup members. So if you were on this call, you are able to use this code Meetup member before February 28th to get a free DynamicsCon pass. So I'll send that in the chat so you all are able to look at it after this call, but very great deal going on and we hope to see you in Chicago. I'll go ahead and hand it back over to Ryan or Ernest, whichever one. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Madison. And so, as we've already stated, we have the DOC team on. We want to turn it over to Jalene, Darnell, and Stephanie. We have an exciting presentation and showing of Power Platform and how they're leveraging in their agency and their environment. And we want to make sure that we have an opportunity for them to share. And like we said, for you all to have questions. And so we can have dialogue around how you too can benefit from leveraging the platform. So Jalene and team, please turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ernest. So really this started for several years. We've been wanting to get our Power Apps platform off the ground here at DOC. And this was a way to do that, to show what we could do with the help of Microsoft. And it was really one of those things that kind of ballooned after we got started. We realized we had to, realized we had to involve other stakeholders, and we did that. And then it's become this really nice Power App application. And I'll let Demetrius go ahead and get started telling you about it.
All right. I'm Demetrius. And like Jalene said, let me go to this slide. The purpose of this application was to create a simple process to improve the employee disciplinary process. And at the time of us creating this, our personnel division was relying on SharePoint lists, a bunch of emails, and creating their own reminders to track their task and anything they needed to do dealing with disciplinaries. And so with the help of Jeff and Microsoft, we developed this Power App that increased the efficiency of the process. It automated tasks and reminders. It enhanced the data management. It also enhanced the data analytics because we have some dashboards for them, and it enhanced the team collaboration between the different users. And so during the development of the application, our product owners enjoyed the concept of it so much that they decided to revise the administrative regulations around corrective actions or disciplinaries, and allow the app to be the base of the regulations. And since we've gone live with the app, we've seen a substantial decrease in the time it takes for corrective actions to be processed from start to finish, which has helped with the morale of employees because they don't have something lingering over their head for weeks or months. And so getting started, how users access the actual application is we created another Power App that's a portal for the users. And for each app we've created, we add it to that portal. And based off their security roles, they see whichever app they have access to. So like for admin as myself, I would see all the applications that we have here. But for regular users, they may only see corrective actions, or they may only see purchase requests. And at the top right, they also have a link to any pending task that they have available to them. So they will click on that corrective actions button there, and it opens up to this screen here. And if you can see on the left-hand side, we have a menu for them to view their employees, a button for them to see the corrective actions, pending reviews, any hearings or conferences, a link to the reports that's for admin users. And anytime we make changes to the app, we have a custom page where they could click on announcements and see any updates or anything that changed with the app. We also have a help section with our frequently asked questions, the training manual and training videos, link to all the documentations, and a link back to the ePass portal. And we also have a option for them to request access for different users to the app. And if they have any issues or suggestions they would like to make, we have a link with a custom page there for them to submit anything there. And so getting started, they would click on the employee on this screen here, and it'll bring them to the employee's record. And as you can see up along the top here, you have the employee's name, and then a tab for the employee details that has the basic details for that employee, like the ID, sex, race, their appointment date, the position, and their facility. And just a note, they can't edit these fields. Since I'm an admin user, the lock icon isn't there, but for regular users, it's a lock icon, so they can't edit. And at the top, we have a tab for corrective actions, and then another app we have is for tracking shifts. But they will click on corrective actions, and it'll bring them to this screen here. And so when we initially rolled this out, we needed a way to provide the users to upload all the prior history, corrective action history for employees, but without making those go through the approval process. So I created this separate subgrid down here at the bottom for prior offenses. They would click on that button there to put the recommendation that employee had, the infraction date, what all infractions were broken, and a little bit more details for all the prior offenses. And we asked them to do that before they start actual corrective action. And that was when we went live with the app. So to create a corrective action, they would click on that new corrective action button here, or they could also click on looking at the main screen here, they could click on corrective actions here, where they have a list of all their pending requests that have been entered, so they could see the statuses, what all recommendations, all the infractions, and everything they need for their pending corrective actions. And they could also hit the new button here. And so getting started, once you hit new, it opens up this screen where we have where we store the main details for the corrective actions. So we have a tracker at the top here that's really been really useful for the users, where they could see where in the process a corrective action is and how long it's been there. And right under that, we have a tab for corrective action, of course, and then a tab for the notes and documentation, where they could upload all the documentation or notes that are regarding that corrective action. A tab for the prior offense history, which they will enter beforehand. If a hearing was requested, all the information for the hearing would be listed here. And then throughout the review process, all reviews and comments left behind by reviewers will be listed on this tab. And so when they get started with a corrective action, of course, they would put the employee, what facility the infractions occurred at. And we allowed them to select the facility because sometimes officers work at different facilities to get overtime. So we gave them that ability. They would select the date of the infraction, whether or not it involves an OIG investigation, whether or not the employee is a facility head or a regional director, and then they would type in the description of what all occurred for that corrective action. And then they will hit save, and that creates the record for the corrective action. And you can see at the top here, the tracker would update to say now it's just awaiting submission. So they could leave it at this point and come back and everything would be stored how they currently have it. And on the right-hand side here, you can see now we have the sections visible for them to put in the work rules that the person or employee broke, the standards of conduct that were broken, and in all the infractions that were broken. And each of these sections is a lookup to separate tables. And so for all the general work rules, we have a table that personnel is able to keep up to date and edit however they need, and add new work rules when need be. All the standards of conduct that are in the administrative regulations, they could manage that, and all the infractions. And so for each of these sections, they will hit new employee work rule or standards of conduct. And it'll bring them to a screen like this, where they would select what infraction or work rule was broken. And then they will hit save and close at the top. And once they've added all the information that was needed for that corrective action, they would then enter the recommendation that they suggest this employee face. And for the recommendations, they range from a counseling session all the way to termination. And so the user would then select the recommendation, and then they would hit toggle the submit button to yes, and then hit save and close at the top. And once they've done that, it will then start the approval process or the review process. And this is an example of how the emails look for the users. And all of this is automated. Before, they manually had to do all of this, type out everything in Word or whatever, and manually email each person throughout the review process. And now they just enter it that one time and hit submit, and everything from there is automated. And so this is the email that all reviewers would get, and it just say, hi, whoever's name, a corrective action has been submitted for your approval. It'll show what the recommendation is, and then give them a link directly to that corrective action. And on the right side of the screen here is an example of how the automated letter looks. So throughout the development process, we were asked if it was possible to auto-generate the letters that personnel and the users were manually having to do each time. And so we came up with this template, and all the information that was previously entered on the prior slides is all present here in the letter. And so to show the date that it was submitted, who the employee is, who submitted it, the facility, the recommendation, the date of the infraction, and all the descriptions, the work rules, infractions, and all the person's prior offense history. And so the reviewer would click that link in the email. It'll bring them to the corrective action where they could review all the information that were put in. I noted at the top here that you can see how long how long it's been at the current process process in the review. So it's been at the regional director for 10 hours doing the screenshot. Click this. And if they click on the Notes and Documentation tab, all the documentation that was uploaded would be present here. Any notes would be present here. If they click on the Prior Offense tab, that employee's prior offense history is present here. And if, like I said before, if they requested a hearing would be present there. And then for the review, they would come here, and each reviewer has their own review assigned to them, so they can see who is assigned to, and they would click on the ID of that record. And once they click on it, they could see the initial recommendation for the corrective action, whatever the current recommendation is, and of course the infractions and prior offense history listed again. And at this point, we ask whether or not they agree with the recommendation, and that's a yes or no question. If they say no, we make it required for them to enter their new recommendation. And if they say yes, the next question is, do they approve of the corrective action? And throughout the development process, we noticed that they could agree with a recommendation, but not agree with the corrective action. And they may want more infractions added or more details added. So we gave them the ability to agree with the recommendation, but also send it back to the submitter to make whatever changes. And so in this case, I said I agree with the recommendation and I approve the corrective action. And so they would hit submit, and it will go to the next step of approval. And at this point, the deputy commissioner changed the recommendation. And so just a little back history, because I left out a slide. Once the regional director approved it, another email was generated for the deputy commissioner. They clicked on that link, went to the review, and then they changed the recommendation to a 2-day suspension. And so at this point, the submitter will be notified that the recommendation changed for their corrective action, and it allows them to come in and make whatever changes are needed. And this is the email that they will get. And it'll just say, hi, Demetrius, the recommendation has changed for the following corrective action. It shows what the initial recommendation was and what the current recommendation is and the comments that that reviewer left behind. And so they would click on the link in that email, make whatever changes were requested, and then resubmit the corrective action. And so once they've resubmitted it, it will then restart the approval process. So the regional director would then get another email saying corrective action has been submitted. They would click that link, go to the review, and this is the screen they would see again. And so at this point, it shows the initial recommendation, what the current recommendation is, and of course, all the infractions and prior offense history. They would make their review decision, and the process will continue. And so to keep it short, once all the reviews have been completed, the submitter is then notified that the corrective action has been approved and it's okay to serve that employee. And this is what that email looks like. And of course, again, it shows whatever the initial recommendation was and what the current recommendation is, and any documentation that has been uploaded throughout the approval process. And so they would serve that employee the corrective action, have them sign the documentation. Then they would click the link in the email to go be navigated back to the corrective action. They would click on that Notes and Documentation tab, upload the signed copy of the letter. They would then answer these questions. Has the employee been served? And that's a yes or no question. If they say yes, we ask for the date that they signed / acknowledged the corrective action and what their response was. And so employees can either request a hearing, they could sign the waiver saying that they agree with the recommendation and they don't want to go through the hearing process, or they could submit a written response, meaning they don't agree with the recommendation, but they will accept it, but would like to give like a backstory on of why they did what they did. And so in this case, I selected that they requested a hearing. And at that point, the submitter would then select which type of hearing is needed. And it could either be an internal hearing, an external hearing, or a conference between just the warden and that employee or director and that employee. They would then toggle the submit employee's response button to yes, and it will continue on with the process for corrective actions. And so since we said the employee requested a hearing, one of the retired wardens who handles the hearings will then be emailed saying that a hearing/conference needs to be scheduled, and they need to assign an officer to that hearing. And so they would click that link in the email. It'll bring them to this screen here for the hearing/conference details. We have a Power Automate workflow that automatically generates or creates the hearing record. So all he has to do is come in, click on the record there, and assign an officer. Pretty simple. Everything is pretty straightforward and simple for them to use. And so he would select which officer he wants to assign to that hearing case, and then hit save and close at the top. And then this is the email that officer then receives. And it'll just say, hi, you've been assigned as the hearing/reviewing officer for the following corrective action. It gives them details on what all occurred, but we don't include any of the notes or documentation that's been uploaded, so they don't go in with a biased opinion to the hearing. And so once they've reached out to the facility, scheduled the hearing, held the hearing, they would then come back to this email, click on the link there, and fill out the details of their findings for the hearing. And so we asked whether or not the hearing has been completed, what was the result of the hearing. So the employee can either be guilty or not guilty of the offenses. We asked for the date that they held the hearing and the time, and then we allow them to submit that record. And so once a hearing has been held, then the review process for after a hearing has been started. And again, all of this is automated. Nobody's having to do anything on their end until they receive an email. Also, throughout the review process, we have automated reminders that are sent out on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for any reviews that haven't been completed and are past the 3-day, is it 3? Is it a 2 or I think 3-day period. So they can get reminders that way. And then they would click on that link in the email. They could see on the main screen here for the corrective action, they will now see the date that the employee signed and acknowledged. They see that the person requested an internal hearing, and they will see that the hearing officer found them guilty of the offenses. They would then go to the review section here and click on the review that's currently assigned to them. And you can also see here at any time you can come to the review section and see all the reviews that the corrective action has gone through and any comments that were left behind. And so they would click on the review assigned to them. It'll bring them to the review screen again. And the only thing that's changed at this point is that they can also see the result of the hearing on this screen also. So the only question we ask after a hearing has been held is whether or not they agree with the officer's decision. And so they would say yes or no to whether or not they agree. And then they would hit save and close. And so just a little, this screen here is for the regular reviewers. So the regional directors, the deputy commissioner, the commissioner if need be. And then once it gets to legal, which is this review, we ask whether or not they approve the corrective action. Because legal doesn't change the recommendation per se, but they look through all the documentation and make sure the submitter has a strong case on why that employee should face the recommendation they are suggesting. And legal will make sure everything looks okay before it actually goes before the employee. And so once legal gives their approval, it will then go to personnel to generate the final letter that the employee signs and the Form 11. And so this is the email personnel will get. It'll just say a hearing/conference has been held for the below corrective action. It also shows the officer's decision and then gives them a link to the corrective action there. So personnel would come in, they would create the letter that the employee would sign, they would upload it, and then they are able to see this personnel workup section. And as you can see on the screen, each of these questions have a key icon beside them, because we were able to put column level security on these questions. So only personnel staff can edit them. The regular users, they can see it, but they can't edit these fields. And so once personnel has generated the letter and they've indicated what would be the first day of suspension, what would be the last day of suspension, or if it was a dismissal, what would be the dismissal date, or if it was a resignation, what was the resignation date, they would then toggle the question here to yes, that they've uploaded the final letter, and then hit save and close. And once that assigned personnel staff member has submitted it, it will then go before the personnel director for final approval. And this is the email that they will get. And it'll just say the below corrective action is ready for your final review. It'll show what the recommendation is and give a link to the corrective action. And once she clicks on that link, it'll bring her to this screen here, where she could see the initial recommendation, the current recommendation. At this point, she could still change the recommendation for the corrective action. So we asked whether or not she agrees, and then it's a yes or no question for has she signed and uploaded the final letter for that corrective action. And once all of that has been completed, this is the email that the final email that the submitter will get, and it'll just let them know that the final letter in Form 11 have been prepared and uploaded for the below corrective action. It shows what the recommendation is, and then of course gives them a link to that corrective action. So at this point, the corrective action has gone through the full review process. Everybody who needs to see it has seen it and gave their input. The personnel director has given her final approval, and now the submitter will present the letter to the employee and allow them to sign it and date it. And once they've signed it, they will come back to this email and click the link. They would go to the notes and documentation tab and upload that final letter, and then submit it for final review. And that's pretty much it's a couple more caveats to the review process, depending on what the recommendation is, but that's the process for corrective actions. And we've seen this process has helped a lot as far as time, and we've really been enjoying it.
I was gonna ask, holy smokes. So this is like transparency from beginning to end, and the sheer amount of automation, like even getting back into some of the earlier sections that you were showing. I saw a reaction come across where it was like, oh my goodness. So you have automation where it automatically puts things into a letterhead template and things like that. But I mean, when we think about the transparency, documentation, and everything that is end to end, you've built out a complete solution with just enough access for those who need it and need to see which parts, but also having that connection in there of all approvers that needs to follow this process, how much time they're spending on it as well. I mean, this is mind blowing to me.
I'm genuinely sitting here. This is very impressive. And the other thing that pointed out from a FOIA perspective, and I hate to go there, but I mean, this has got to be just life altering. If you guys get hit with a FOIA, you're like, okay, instead of having to go to 8,000 places, you just go here and everything's there.
Exactly.
That's huge.
Now, my curious question on this now is, Demetrius, is how long did this take to build? trial and error?
So, like I said on that first slide, our stakeholders ended up revising the administrative regulation. So from start to finish, it took about a year, but that wasn't pure development time.
Yeah. And I think about the number of players that would be involved in any form of internal investigation or even that approval process. Thinking back to my prior history as a cop, anytime that an officer was late, we had to document that, where does all of this go? To me, there's so many different, people that would touch this that, even if I made, and I'll be, kind here, if I made $17 an hour for the municipality that I worked with and the capacity that I was at, and I was spending time on this, that all adds up into time saved. So has there been any form of like looking back at the amount of time that this has now saved? We know the cost of development, and there's been revisions and things like that. So this has been a continuous progress of this app development. But is there any kind of grasp on, the amount of time saved and how easy this has now made people to do their jobs?
Ryan, I hate to put her on the spot, but I do see that our personnel director is on, and she may be able to say something to that. That's up to her, though, because we wouldn't know.
I can't make that call if they talk or not. They're
Sorry, technical difficulties here. Yes, I am on, and I would love to speak to this. We have absolutely loved this app and the work that the IT team did on this. When we started talking about it, it was much smaller in scope. And as we talked, I might say, well, hey, can we do this? I said, well, let's look into it. And then they'd come back and say, well, yeah, we can do this, but we can also do this. And so it grew exponentially in scope and ended up being just the perfect answer for what we needed. And using the dashboard that Dimitri has talked about, we are able to go in and see how long it's taking to get corrective action through from beginning to end, and where it may have taken, and I hate to say this, a year to get a corrective action through the process because it was all paper folders being hand carried from office to office. We have gotten some of them through in, and I mean the ones with conferences and hearings, in 2 weeks or less. And that's just amazing.
Yeah. It reminds me of like, back in my cop days, the manila envelope where we had to, okay, now it goes to this person. We put it in their mailbox. They would do what they needed to document. They put that manila envelope in someone else's inbox. I mean, that's the old school way of kind of going through it. And here there's an employee that is left in limbo of, okay, I knew I was, let's say, late for work, and it's been a, reoccurring thing. I know things that are happening in my life that made me late for work. But, just because the violation happened, this now adds that transparency and accountability into like this more trackable and more efficient way of going through that particular employee complaint to get to an outcome or resolution. So that way the employee is not left in limbo and to your point, this is, the truth of the matter is, without it being months in time. And increasing employee satisfaction. Yes, I know I screwed up, but I love where I work, so I want to keep working. What's the punishment? Just give me the punishment so I can continue to move forward, right? So I love how this was created. So I mean, I know we can't put dollars and cents behind it, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind is when we look at the Power Platform, its capabilities, and we look for those time savings, because it's not like we're in government getting a ton more of employee and open recs that we can fill with bodies and stuff like that. So how can we get more efficient using automation, and then also having the ability to create a model driven app like this where we can have that end-to-end accountability. Ernest, did you have any questions? If not, maybe we could open it up. If there's a raise hand button at the very top here of Teams, and we can certainly go in order and keep track that way. Oh, and here the hands went up.
That was going to be my suggestion. So let's go straight into the questions.
All right. Manley, it looks like you were number one.
Yeah, I had a couple of things. First of all, great job, guys. So I'm just curious about, you were using the template for the model driven app. So how many developers were working on this? And I know that Power Platform for most state agencies in Alabama is kind of a new thing. How many, what was the experience level for you guys when you started this project?
So actually, this was the first app that
Okay.
we developed.
Yeah.
And it was mainly me working along with Jeff Davis from Microsoft.
Yes.
And so
I'm at transportation, so I'm familiar with Jeff.
oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. And is there multiple Power Automate flows in the background, or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Manley. Anyone
Yes.
else? Oh, there's another one. DeAndre, my buddy, who presented last month. What's up, buddy?
Hey there, how you doing? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I had a question about your how do you fill out that template? I see it's got your department header and footers and stuff. How were you able to get that to be filled out from the information from Dataverse in there? Because it looks really great. I mean, it looks awesome. And I'm just like, okay, I have a need for that. So I'm kind of curious, really curious about that piece right there.
Yep. So I created a template in Word with the developer option turned on. And if I can pull it up. Well, I created a template with the fields that I needed on that template. And then inside of Power Automate, I used the populate Word document function and pull up that template and just add the, how do you say it? The dynamic content to that template. And then create that in SharePoint and convert it to a PDF.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. I haven't used that piece before, so that makes perfect sense. So you created the fields using the developer ribbon. You add the fields to where you want the information to go, and then you use Power Automate to take the information out of the tables and just populate, say, okay, put this one in this field in Word, this in this field in Word, this in this field Word. And then how hard was it to get it converted to PDF and stored in SharePoint?
Not difficult. It's pretty straightforward. Once you get the template, then you want to create it as a Word document in SharePoint, then convert that Word document to PDF. And that's how I did it.
Gotcha. Did you have to do any like HTML, Java, JavaScript coding at all, or was it just straight click and drag or click and populate?
Just click and populate.
That makes it even easiver. I'm gonna have to explore this on my side now. Thank you very much. This is really awesome. Well, I've got a use case for this, not exactly like this, but to populate transfer forms, because I'm part of the inventory team. So to be able to populate transfer forms with the serial numbers, the description, and the condition of the device into that, and then being able to say, okay, it's transferring from this department to this department, and then send that off over to the controllers to make that transfer. So I was worried about how to do that. Now that I see this, I'm like, okay, this is really great. You've helped me out right here.
The idea is worth sharing. I love it. There was another hand, but someone lowered it. So, and I did say, if you do have a question and you're not able to come off of mute or whatever, understand. If you're able to type it, please, by all means, feel free and do that as well.
Hey, Ryan, I'd just like to add that this is, a lot of Demetrius, and he's done a wonderful job. And We've added another guy to the team. His name is Key, and then we're about to add another one full time. She's been working part time with us. So with the vision for ePass, with some of these applications, Power App applications, link to each other. So you can be working in one, and then we did. Demetrius did a purchase request app, or excuse me, let me go to a user access. If they need equipment, then it goes to the Power App they created for equipment request. And then if they got to purchase equipment, then it automatically sends them to the purchase request app so they can purchase it. And that's really been great within that portal, is that all of these link together. They've done a phenomenal job.
We have a question that came in, just wondering about how you handle PII, some of the personal identifiable information. And I'm guessing it's, you talked a little bit about it earlier, Demetrius, where there's actual, column level security as well. How else are you addressing some of the PII and making sure that others can only see what they should be seeing?
Yep. So we don't really have any employees PII inside of our Dataverse. Like their social security number, we only have the last 4, and then that's pretty much all we pull in, because all our employee information is coming from our SQL server. And so then throughout the corrective action, how we handle the security roles is you can only see corrective actions within your business unit. And each facility only has like 1 or 2 people who handles the corrective actions. And so that's how we can limit who can see what.
And hopefully I did that question justice there, Valerie. If that didn't answer it, please let me know. DeAndre, again.
Yeah, could you go back to your screen where you showed the different applications they could choose from really quick? I was kind of
the portal.
really interested in it. Yes.
Yep.
Is that a Power Page portal? Is that just an interface you created?
It's a Power App portal. It's a Power App that contains other
okay.
Power Apps. Yeah.
How do you get that?
Gotcha.
Oh, yep.
And are all those Power Apps tied into this one Dataverse, or does they click over to separate Dataverse environments, or do you have all your tables in your one solution?
So yeah, we have a dev environment, a test environment, and then production. And so all the users of the applications, they would just be inside of our production environment.
Okay. And all of your applications are in that production environment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you guys use a combination of Power Apps for some views, and then you have the Dataverse views for other things. Does that sound about right?
Say that one more time.
Are all of your applications using the Dataverse forms, or are some of yours using Power Apps forms to interact with the information? I might not be asking that right.
So when you're mentioning forms and you mention it, so these applications are built in Dataverse, but what I'm hearing you say is basically if maybe it's a model driven app or a Canvas app, are you trying to compare the two where you have the look and feel of a different type of form that you are entering that information into?
Right. Yeah, because I know most of what we saw were the Dataverse form views where you enter the information in directly in Dataverse. But I also know you can use Power Apps to give a much more user-friendly interface, because you can arrange things how you want, put a little pizzazz behind it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I didn't know if you're using a combination of the two.
Go ahead, Demetrius. I think you got it now.
Yep, I got you now.
Mm-hmm.
So yep, lately in our most recent applications we've started, like user access and new hires and stuff, we've done a combination of the two. So we have our model-driven apps with custom pages inside them. So it gives us that flexibility to design it how we want it to look and add a little bit more, make it a little bit more user-friendly, you know.
Yeah.
See, I could give an example.
But just so you know, but both of those apps are using that Dataverse. That both are surfacing information from Dataverse. So
Yeah.
just so you know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey,
Was it
my
difficult
name
to
is.
incorporate all of these in there? I'm sorry. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted, was it difficult to incorporate all these different apps into this one, uh, into one Dataverse environment? Because I know sometimes you're pulling from different tables and things like that, but you still have centralized tables to pull from for centralized information. So I was kind of curious about that.
Not really. And the guy who developed this ePass portal, Key, he's sitting right here if he wants to answer it.
Can I hear the question again?
I was wondering if it was it difficult to have so many different applications working in one environment without having information to overstepping each other.
No, it wasn't too difficult. This was actually the first one I created.
First Power App. And I love the low code experience. Kenya, yeah. Question do you have?
Hey, my apologies. I jumped on super late and we had some issues with getting in. I'm at Department of Transportation as well. I had a general question, so I think this may be for Demetrius. I'm not sure who the team lead is at DOC. But I was wondering how big your development team is with, I'm gonna say, we also are very familiar with Jeff Davis from Microsoft. So I was just curious how big the development team was. And what
So,
their experience level is with development of full stack applications.
so for the team-wise, development team-wise, for low code, we're separated out into different teams. I lead up the low code team. So we've kind of got a number of things under us, the public website, our Laserfish, SharePoint, and then Power Apps and Teams and whatnot. And we have myself, Demetrius. Demetrius has been here since 2020. And we brought on Key just last year, and then we're adding one other developer. She's been here with us, but she's switching from another section to our section, and then we've had a contractor working with us also. And then for the other teams, we have several other developers that do full stack development. So Demetrius, do you want to talk about full stack experience?
Sure. So yeah, when I first started, like Jelene said, in 2020, I was helping the programming team when they were doing the rewrite for incidents, our incidents module. And I did a lot of the reports for them and some of the code, but as far as full stack development, all my experience is pretty much here at DOC.
Thank you.
And to add to that, Key has the other developer, Key has web experience from another job before he came here.
Doug, it looks
Yes,
like
hello. Yeah, this is Albert Manners. I'm here in Kenya's office. I had some problems logging on. I just wanted to say this is a really impressive application that you guys put together. We are at the DOT are doing some similar work with, we have a very small team, just actually 4 persons. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, you mentioned your low code developers. Could you kind of expound on that? What when you say your low code, do you have like your team split into separate entities, low code and maybe senior developers? I know you have Jeff Davis there. We did everything on our own. The we didn't have Jeff with us. He at that point he will be joining us soon, but we have a team of developers fresh out of school, and so I was just really a bit curious as to how you define your local developers and developers in your entity.
So we have 3 programmer analyst 4s that work as team leads here. So we have 3 teams, or we have had in the past. My team is we do SharePoint, low-code, the Power Platform. We also use Laserfish here, and then the public website. The other 2 team leads, we've all interacted with, all the different applications here, so we kind of interchange. The other 2 have done applications for full stack development, but we are also transitioning to a new enterprise system for corrections. So we got one developer doing that, and another one that is working more on the database side. He's transitioning more to DBA work, database work. Did that help answer the question?
Yes, one other question pertaining to your data. Are you putting everything in the Dataverse? I know you mentioned SharePoint. Are you using any lists for any of your applications?
No.
So everything is Dataverse.
Yep. The only thing we're storing in SharePoint right now is the documentation for the different applications like corrective actions and the purchase requests. All of that documentation, that's SharePoint, but everything else is Dataverse.
And the last question, I promise.
Please.
Please. In terms of backing up your Power Apps applications, how are you going about doing that?
Jolene, is OIT handling that, right?
Yeah, so this is so since they're DOT, they know know of OIT. This is in OIT's government cloud, government tenant, which we use here for email, SharePoint, and all of that. We are in OIT's government tenant, if that's what you're asking. And for those who aren't Alabama, OIT is the Office of Information Technology. They're kind of our sister agency, and they oversee a lot of the IT functions that go on across the state and work with all the other different agencies.
Yeah. And if you're from different jurisdictions too, sometimes even at the state level, there are ways that like I work in more municipality and county governments type of thing, but there are, state jurisdictions where, they can glean this type of information off as well. Doug, you've had your hand up for a long time, buddy.
Yeah, just one quick note or comment and one quick question. So I cover the state of Texas, TDCJ, for Microsoft. And one thing that we do as a state, we have a community practice for the state. So all interested Power Platform individuals across the agencies get together once a month. And that's a great way to share kind of these best practices between agencies. So if you haven't thought about that, I would highly encourage someone to kind of start that practice, because it does help a lot of these intra-agency questions that pop up. And then my question is, do you have any plans to externalize any of these use cases, maybe with even inmate information for online inmate search through Power Pages, or strictly just internal at this point?
Strictly internal at this point. We've kind of shied away. We've got an inmate transactional system, so we've kind of shied away from doing too much inmate stuff. We have some Power Apps that we, one or two at Power Apps that we've done for employees to do what they need to for like inmate documents or whatnot. But this ePass right here, it's only for employee support functions is what we're keeping it to.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Couple of the
Ryan?
hands, bro.
It looks like you're muted, Ryan.
You know, that
Yeah,
would
you're
not be the first time. Are you kidding me? From a licensing perspective of what you guys built, there was a question in the chat, is like, what is that, some of that licensing model? Are you using a per user or per app? Just kind of understanding a little bit of what you build out. We understand within Microsoft, there's use rights. When you get Power Apps, you can do certain other things in the Power Platform. But what was your kind of model looking at this?
So I don't know if I can fully answer that question. But early last year, this has allowed us to really go forward with what we've done so far. Our CIO purchased 1,100, I believe, something like that, per user Power App licenses, and I believe we get those through OIT. And that's what we've been doing. As far as anything else, I don't know. I'm not a part of it, so I can't speak to it.
Yeah, and it gets to be kind of a difficult question too, because if it's, like a per app basis, if you have a smaller base count of maybe employees using this, maybe that would make more sense versus also the per user. So I mean, if you want to have the licensing conversation, I would say reach out to your Microsoft account team. We'd be happy to help field some of these questions as well when it comes down to what might make the most sense for your agency and your environment. With the last couple of minutes we have left, Raphael, you've also been patiently waiting with that hand up.
Hello. Yeah, thank you. I want to say for sure, great job. This is it's a good application. Mind blowing of what you could do with Power Apps. But my question is really, I think I want to piggyback on kind of like the back end question somebody asked earlier, and more on the code base. I'm familiar with kind of using Power Platform. I use it more for Dynamics CE, but we do get in situations where we need these kind of custom applications to piggyback some of the CE infrastructure. And I mean, at the end, it's all in the Dataverse, but code base, meaning like, do you have this like on GitHub? How do you control? I know you guys talked earlier about you have a development, a test, or a stage, and then a production. So, as you're making changes, I'm pretty sure you get to a point where, all right, I need to replicate that. So is this like a solution, or is it actually like a code base where like you put it somewhere on GitHub or on DevOps?
So right now, everything is in the solutions. So we broke out our solution into separate ones. So we have one for all the security roles, one for all the tables, one for all the cloud flows, one for the apps, and yeah, and that's it. And so whenever we get started on developing a new application, we just make a patch of the base solution. And whenever that's ready to be moved to test, we'll export it, manually export it, and import it over to the test environment. And then once that's ready for production, we'll export that and import it into the production environment.
All right, that's that. So I was doing that before. I will just say I know Microsoft has one. If you guys have a chance to look up under GitHub, there's actions where it lets you replicate some of the package solutions, and you could go through environments and, instead of manually copying, it save a lot of time. But I would say maybe you guys look into that, and it helps a lot to automate as well the replication of the code. So that's cool though. Thank you for the insight. Appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And that is, I believe, all the time that we are even allowed from the Dynamics user group for this 1 hour meetup. Thank you so much for Department of Corrections, Alabama, for being willing, first of all, to come and showcase what you've put together. This is an idea worth sharing with all of our Dynamics user group audience. This is, simply phenomenal. And the intent is to get the ideas flowing peer to peer across the US SLG, which is why we have developed the DUG4GOV meetup here. I guess, Ernest, is there anything else to take us out? I know, stand by. We'll be sending out information on February's DUG4GOV. Exciting information we're working on in the background, and also another customer presenting their use case as well. Hopefully it'll resonate with the audience, and we'd love to see you back. Anything else, Ernest, you can think of?
I just wanted to make sure I reminded the team and everybody on is that if you registered being on this call, which you have, you should be also receiving a link for the recording of this call. So if it's something that you want to be able to share with other team members, you have that opportunity. And again, just to reiterate, we really appreciate the time, and we really hope that this is resonating and we can find where we can continue to help you with your business outcomes and goals, objectives and goals by leveraging the platform and as a whole. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Ernest, and thank you, everyone. And we'll see you on the next call. Appreciate everyone's attendance, and I love the chat. Keep it coming. I love it.
Fantastic job, DOC. Fantastic. This is awesome. Thank you.